Well, hello there. My name is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Playing Solo Jazz Piano and the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series. And today we're going to be talking about something that's probably most appropriate for people studying Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1. Although I think we can all, no matter the level, learn from this. We're always trying to get better at phrasing and blues improvisation. And so I've got two activities for you to practice regarding phrasing and blues improvisation. So let's go. Let's dive in. So the first thing that you need to understand for these exercises, if you're a person newer to jazz, is that you've probably heard that we call it the 12-bar blues. And it's the 12-bar blues because it has 3 4-measure phrases. 3 times 4 equals 12. Okay, so it's really important to understanding the blues to know that you have these 3 phrases. You might ask, is it ever something different? The answer is not really. Sometimes the melody will act like a little bit differently, but really the phrasing remains the same throughout. So the first exercise that I want to give you is called playing an AAB blues. And so the AAB, those aren't chord symbols. That would be a funky blues. The AAB refers to how we're going to treat each of those 3 phrases. Once we play subject A in the first phrase, we're going to repeat it in the second phrase. And then once we repeat that, then we will come up with a B subject, which is going to be a contrasting subject. Subject is such a formal word. Once we're going to play a different thing, a contrasting lick, a contrasting phrase. So I'm going to do this in C, and the reason why I find this activity valuable is twofold. One is that this is very native to the blues. So I ask your pardon, I'm going to sing. Not a thing that is pleasant to hear, but it's to prove a point, okay? So, a very typical blues kind of phrasing will be something like, ooh, my baby left me. She left me yesterday. Okay, so that was phrase 1. Now we're in phrase 2. Oh, my baby left me. She left me yesterday. Okay, so phrase 2 is an exact repetition, and then we need to come up with something contrasting, and lyrically we want to rhyme it somehow for phrase 3. My poor baby just up and went away. Right, this is one way that we really like to present melodies in the blues. Say one thing first, repeat it for emphasis, and then when the tension from the repetition is too great, we resolve it at the end. This works beautifully musically as well. So that's the first reason, is that it's just great for the blues. The second reason is that it forces you to pay attention to yourself, right? If you have to remember what you play in that first phrase, it means you're truly going to have to be listening to yourself, and you're going to have to be playing with a certain amount of clarity. And so as you're doing this, I would encourage you to hold yourself to a really high standard of repeating exactly what you played in phrase 1 in phrase 2. So let me see if I can demonstrate a couple times. This always makes me nervous because it's very easy to forget what you play. It could happen to anybody. We could all zone out and do something else, think about something else. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's phrase A. Here we go. I think I got it. And now for phrase B, I'm going to contrast. Let's do one more. That was long, I don't know. I think that was it. So a couple of notes here. The first one is that you might have noticed I'm including a lot of rests. And that's both for musical and practical reasons. Musically, it's really nice to play from the first bar into the third bar as your phrase, and then leave the last bar and a half or so in terms of like a call and response. That would be the response in that second half. And even for the B part, I'm not trying to fill the whole thing up. Okay? Musically, it's very satisfying. The blues likes symmetry. The blues likes call and response. So just because you're playing a 4-measure section doesn't mean you have to fill that 4-measure section with notes all the time. The second thing is that the B section is a good place to think about some different kinds of contrasts that you could make. Could be that if the first phrase mainly goes down, the second phrase could go up. If the first phrase, the A phrase is, mainly straight, the B phrase can be much more curvy. If the A phrase has a lot of steps, maybe the B phrase can have leaps. If the A phrase is mainly fast-moving notes, maybe the B phrase can have a held note, right? If the A phrase starts with a pickup, maybe the B phrase can start after the bar line. So it's kind of fun, and I think it's very musically useful to think about some of these different kinds of contrasts and try to enact them between the A phrase and the B phrase. The second kind of blues phrasing that I want to teach you is different, and I don't have a good name for it. I should have come up with one before the video, but I didn't. If I was using the same A, B, I would call it like A prime, A prime prime, A prime 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 B. And what I mean by prime is that we use that word to indicate a variation. So A, and then a variation of A, and then a different variation of A, and then a different variation of A. And so what we're going to do here is play shorter phrases in the first 8 measures. So we're going to play A, rest, A. This apostrophe means prime, rest, A, a different variation, rest, A. Now we can make a third variation if we want, rest. And then we are going to kind of have the same B phrase as we did before. Again, a contrasting phrase that lasts for about 2 bars. So here, instead of sorry, that made no sense. Instead of having a nice long A phrase, a single phrase in phrases 1 and 2, we're having shorter phrases. Let me show you how this sounds, and then I want to talk about how we're going to vary this A phrase. So it could be so my B phrase. I'll do another one here. A really great example of this is a piece called Pie Eyes Blues by Duke Ellington. It goes like this. In that piece, it's kind of interesting because the phrases are pickups. So here, it's actually a little offset. It's like he's playing where I have the rests indicated. But same idea. So in terms of contrasts, how is A different than A prime, A double prime, whatever? The biggest thing I would recommend is changing your last note, changing your phrase ending. And thinking about phrase endings that go down as answers, phrase endings that go up as questions. And also, you're going to have to match some of the chords that are changing. Right? The very first A phrase is on the 1 chord. Oops, get a different pen. But the third phrase is going to be on the 4 chord. So you might have to change the phrase ending to match the changing harmony. Okay, so the biggest thing would be phrase ending. And it's really nice to start the B phrase the same way, but then extend it as though you've only been showing a small part of the phrase, and now we're going to show the whole phrase. Right, so I started with those same 3 notes I was starting the A phrases with. Another way you can change it is to change the phrase beginning. So if my phrase is... I could use a similar rhythm, but different notes, right? Instead of keeping the same notes, playing a different rhythm, or maybe removing a note. Okay, so those are 3 really nice ways to change these A phrases. First and most important, I think, is to change the final note or final couple of notes. Thinking about going up versus going down. Second one would be to use the same rhythm, but change all the notes or almost all the notes. And the third one is to change the phrase beginning by maybe removing some notes, maybe adding some notes, or transposing it, putting it a little bit lower or a little bit higher. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If this was a good level for you, you'll find stuff like this. There's improvisation exercises like this in every chapter of Jazz Piano Fundamentals, or if you're a little bit more advanced, you might be ready for Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 2. Thanks for watching, everybody. Talk to you soon.